everyone. Thank you very much. I will give you a brief presentation about some stats and data about the Israeli capital markets and the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. That's a good sign. So in terms of public companies, we have on the exchange 549 public companies. We have roughly another 100 companies that trade only the debt, the bonds on the exchange. We are one of the fewest exchanges in the world that actually bonds are being traded not as OTC platforms, but being traded on the exchange in the book. So this is why we have a very deep both government and corporate bond. Market capitalization of all of our equity is actually close to $1 trillion. Palo Alto dual listed to the exchange on February 23rd, which clearly gave a big boost, but also the success of the Israeli economy in the past 2 years. You can see it in the return in our leading indices, but also in the market cap of the companies. Another important feature that not everybody is fully aware of is the free float. Historically, people used to say about the exchange, there's not enough liquidity, you have the owners that possess a significant stake in the company, but actually in the past few years, the free flow really improved itself, and we've reached a 74%, which is a very high number. I guess that will never be on the 90+% like in the US market, but still, that's a very good number. And we've seen also an accelerated growth in our public companies in the past 6 years. And as you can see, we have actually a great diversification in all of the various segments of our economy that are being reflected in the exchange, being the high-tech number one, and then the financials and the real estate. When we dive into the high-tech, we see that the market capitalization is $450 billion, 179 public companies. We've had 98 high-tech IPOs record high of approximately $24 billion, and we've seen actually 100% growth in their participation in the TA90 and in other equities that we trade. In terms of our leading index performance, clearly 2025, what you see here is total return in local price. So 2025 was a very bullish year in our exchange. The TA Insurance Index was significantly number one. He rose by more than 150%. But also our flagship indices like the TA35 and TA125 were about 50% yield over the year. 26 looks different, especially because of the last few weeks where our leading indices lost around 10% after the signing of the agreement. But still you see overall good returns. And you can say that, for example, the energy utilities and the technology this specific year are outperforming the other indices. Another very important factor that is taking place in our market in the past few years is the retail participation. Actually, what happened in other Western markets 20, 30 years ago is now happening in Israel. We've seen approximately 500,000 retail new accounts that have been opened in the past 3.5 years. 170,000 new accounts were opened in 2025 alone, and this year you already have another 100,000 retail accounts. You see actually in the past year, the Israeli banks doing PR on national television, talking directly with the public. There is a competition about fees that you can trade. You see the young generation being much more active, want to create passive cash flow for themselves. We as the exchange also have we try to have as much as possible direct dialogue to have events like Young Money on the exchange. And clearly this is something that is shifting the needle, and this is something that we believe that in the next few years we'll see more members of the exchange that will compete with this young generation. And because if you look at the amount of money that people possess in their cash accounts in the Israeli banks compared to the country GDP, we still have the highest rate in any Western economy of money not being invested and not being deployed. Meaning, as long as we'll have good companies and good IPOs, there's plenty of institutional money and retail money that can come and invest in those companies. We did a major change together with the Israeli Securities Authority and Bank of Israel. This change came into effect this January, and actually for the first time, our market is open Monday to Friday. It was extremely important because it symbolized the world that Israel is open for business, and we want to adapt global standards, and we want to make sure that what is good and positive in Western markets will have the same in our market. I have to tell you that I don't think that anybody anticipated that this move will be so successful in such short time of period. Actually, what we've seen is that in terms of volume, that we've reached 4.5 billion shekels, the daily average on Friday. And on Sunday, what we had in 2025 was approximately 1.5 billion shekels. So we actually tripled the trading volumes, even though Friday it's only 4 hours of trading. But if you look at this slide, you see that 2025 on Sunday was actually the best year we've ever had on Sunday. So if you go to 24 and 23, you see that the increase is even much higher. And more importantly is the global institutional participation in our market. During 2025 on Sundays, global investors' percentage was around 12%, which is, by the way, the peak that we've had, because if we go a few years before, global participation on Sunday was 6, 7, 8%. But this year, global participation is around 40% out of the total trading on Friday. And because what we are doing and what is happening in the Israeli capital market, there are more and more institutions that want to trade more and be more active in our market, which of course is good for everybody. I have a couple of slides on something that many people are not aware, but it's important for me to highlight. We actually, as a company, we were the first ever company to do a global offering on the exchange during 2019. We took Jefferies and we did a global IPO. What does it mean? It basically means that you trade on one venue on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, but the offering is not being pitched only to local investors, but also to international investors. So you can do your prospectus in English, and you do the roadshow in London, New York, Boston, whatever, and basically you bring global investors that trade your share on TAFE. There are a few advantages to this model. You get accessibility to global institutional investors. You get analyst coverage by American Investment Bank, which is very, very important. And basically, there is a gateway for the future because not everybody knows, but in Israel, when you're a public company, you do not have to report your guidance quarter by quarter, whereas when you trade in the States, you have this play of, you miss by EPS 1 cent or not, and everything. So basically, what's the rationale behind choosing TAFE for a global IPO? We have by far lower listing and ongoing cost. This is basically familiar regulation that everybody knows. Strong ties to the Israeli innovation ecosystem, which is a core system why, for example, Palo Alto chose to do list. If you're big enough, you will join our flagship indices, which will, by definition, increase your liquidity because we have a very strong ETF market. The Israeli regulation, you can also do it with English prospectus, and basically you can raise capital in Israel and abroad. We have basically around 50 companies that are currently dual listed on TAFE and in New York, most of them in NASDAQ, but some of them are on IATI. The dual listing framework basically gives you the ability to dual list not only in New York, but also in London or in TMX in Canada and Hong Kong. Basically, you see that the market cap of the dual listed companies are around $400 billion, and roughly 27% out of the total trading volumes that we have in TAFE derive from the dual listed. We also have stats that show that actually after you do list, it's increased your liquidity, and this is why it's actually a free option for the company. And you can do list, and after a few years, if you're big enough, you can always go to New York, even though, as you all know, the bar to enter the New York capital market now is much, much higher than it used to be. It's no longer the $100 million ARR. It's more $500 million ARR, and the median market cap of new IPOs in New York is $5.5 billion. Actually, up to $10 billion, you're perceived to be a small cap company in New York, and given everything that we see with SpaceX and other huge IPOs, by definition, it doesn't give enough space to the smaller companies. Our largest dual listed companies that we have a part of Palo Alto is LB, Teva, Tower Nova, Enlight, Camtech, Ormat, NICE, Canon, and IX. Part of what we are doing to get more accessibility to international investors, we have our Maya website in English, so people outside of Israel, can read and understand what we are doing. We, together with the Israeli Securities Authority, we have a voluntary English filings. Actually, companies that do IPO can do everything in English, nothing in Hebrew. This is their own fully discretion what they choose to do. And we have also placed in AI solution that currently give all of our TA 125 companies basically reporting in English, so it will be helpful for global investors. And my last slide, just to show you another angle of the market potential in terms of the money. The Israeli institutions' long-term savings are one of the highest mandatory savings rate in the OECD. I actually think we are number one. We are the highest. We are talking about $1 trillion in long-term savings, but more importantly is the continued growth pace of this amount of money, which is around $4 billion every month, additional inflows that those institutions are getting, and by definition, they need to deploy the money. And with that, thank you very much for your attention, and enjoy the rest of the day.